Well, folks, once again, welcome back to my YouTube channel, Captain Boat Builder. Today is the last episode in the construction series, number 18. It's entitled Finished at Last. And yes, finally, after almost exactly 6 months here in the basement, I am finished with my little boat journey. The construction's finished, the varnish, the paint, everything's done. It's ready to hit the water. But I did want to go back and review just a few things that I realized these are small points, but points that might, again, help you with your build, help it make it easier, better, more enjoyable. But I did want to review a few more things here at the very end. And then after this brief review, I will have just a little bit of video of the boat itself here complete in the basement. So we'll just get into that right now. I reviewed the videos, all of them, and I went back and I started with the very first one entitled, So You Want to Build a Boat. I do have some cue cards here so I can remember exactly what I was supposed to be saying. In that video, I mentioned that if you wanted to save money, this was probably not the right way to go. And now, after 6 months, I've realized if you wanted to save time, this also is probably not the right way to go. This is a pretty time-consuming project, and I really enjoyed it, but it did take some time. I wanted to mention also that I think it's very important, especially if you're going to buy a kit from Chesapeake Lightcraft or somebody else. I think it's very important that you get the construction manual first. You can either download it or you can get the printed form. But go through the whole thing, every single page, and then you'll have a really good idea of what you're in for, and then you'll know, do I really want to do this? Episode 2, What's in the Kit? I went back and reviewed that, and I realized that I purchased some things that I probably didn't really need to buy, and there were some other things that I needed more of. And this is a very individual thing, so you'll have to sort of adjust this based on how you build the boat yourself. Here's some of the things that I purchased that I didn't really need to buy. The plastic squeeze bags for applying the thickened resin. I didn't need those. I did buy them, but I didn't need them. I bought the thin plywood shaping tools. I did not need those. I bought some mixing bowls. Turns out I didn't need mixing bowls because I just used those little yogurt cups. And if you fill them up with mixed resin about 2/3, that's about all I could work with before it started to set up and I had to mix another batch. The yellow scrapers turned out to be great tools and I used them a lot. I only really needed 2 of them. They're pretty easy to clean with alcohol. I bought a bunch of the rollers. These are the high density, very thin foam rollers, the 8-inch rollers that you cut in half to make 4-inch rollers. I bought quite a few of them and the handles to go with them. Turns out I didn't use them at all, and the reason is that most of the surfaces in this boat, the Sassafras 12, are so small that the rollers really were just a little bit too big. I mostly just used the foam brushes. I did buy a box of 100 sets, 100 pair of disposable nitrile gloves from Home Depot. I used a lot of disposable gloves, so I would recommend that you go ahead and buy those. I found that in the kit, the container of wood flour and the Cellophyll, both thickening agents, there was plenty of that, so you don't have to worry about ordering more of that. I did use all of the resin and hardener that came in the kit, and I wound up ordering an extra quart because I just needed a little bit more resin. In the beginning, I ordered too many of the chip brushes. I didn't use them as much as I thought. I think you can probably get away with about 10 of them. I used the foam brushes for almost everything else. I would say a minimum of 30. The ones from Chesapeake Lightcraft are very good. I also bought some from a local art supply place called Michael's. They were good. I would not recommend the foam brushes from Home Depot. They're not dense enough. They're a little bit too flimsy. They're not any cheaper, and I don't think it's a good idea. With the clamps, I used more than I thought I would. I would say buy at least 40. I want to show you some tools that I bought that I thought that I would use, but I didn't. The first one is a very nice small block plane from Stanley. This is a beautiful tool. I'm not very familiar with planes. I thought I would use it during the process, and I didn't. So I'm not sure that a little block plane is really necessary. I also bought this sanding pad. Nice sanding pad, nice handle. It's too big. This is a saw that I bought through Chesapeake Lightcraft. It's a very fine bladed saw, as you can see. The teeth are very fine. Interestingly, it cuts in both directions. This is a very precise little saw. I used it to shape the ends, to shape the rails up at the ends of the boat. It's a good little saw. I'm not completely sure that you need it. I also bought this, which is a longboard. And this is a rather small longboard. It's kind of a contradiction in terms. We could call it the short longboard. This is designed to sand on flat surfaces. And what I found is because the Sassafras 12 is relatively short, there are hardly any flat surfaces. All the planks, inside or outside, they're either convex or concave, and this thing does not work especially well. Real longboards that they use on bigger boats that are longer are flexible, and so they take the contours of the hull shape. This one does not. I had a lot of luck just with the foam sanding blocks. I wanted to mention this again. I mentioned this during the videos, but I want to mention it one more time. Be very careful with the planking. Be careful when you unpack it. It's very soft. The plywood is very soft. You have a smooth surface, but it scratches easily. And when you do scratch it, it's hard to get the gouges out, even with extensive sanding. And you will see little dark lines that show up when you start applying the resin and the varnish. So be very careful with the planking when you unpack it and during construction, that you don't scratch it. On gluing the rails, this is when you glue the outboard rail to the number 5 plank. Remember, use as little glue as possible so that it won't make a huge sanding mess for you. Also, the rubber tips on the clamps will not stick to epoxy, or epoxy won't stick to them. So if you get a little bit of glue on the rubber tips, it'll come right off. Again, when you're doing the rail work, inside or outside, a helper is very, very important, or at least it was for me. One thing I wanted to mention with construction of the hull itself, when you're starting to put the planks together with the wires and the hull is starting to take shape, I had quite a bit of trouble getting the bows plumb. And so what I would recommend is that you just work very slowly, constantly tightening, retightening, pushing the wood, getting it in the exact correct position. If you break a few wires, it's no problem. You can put new wires in. But the trick, I think, is working from the middle toward the ends and working very slowly, especially as you get to the end. The last point that I wanted to make had to do with the fillets that are in the bows at both ends. Because you're going to use the wood flour as a thickening agent, and it sort of turns brown, these fillets are very, very obvious. And I would recommend as much practice as you think you need so that you're comfortable with the filleting process, so you get nice, clean edges, that you don't have to do much sanding, and that the lines are straight. So don't be afraid to practice too much with the filleting. And that's about it on the things that I could remember that I might have forgotten that I wanted to mention to you. I did want to say again that the folks at Chesapeake Lightcraft were just fantastic. And I would recommend their company again without hesitation. The journey, my journey, is now complete. I hope that you're making good progress on your build, or at least that you're making some decisions about what you'd like to do. It's been a great, great process for me. Again, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed it. We will have a little launching party A friend of mine who lives nearby has a small lake behind his house. We're going to have a party, and I will be videoing a little bit of the party, and you'll get to see me trying to get into this boat, see if I can paddle around without flipping over. So thanks again for watching. It's been a real pleasure for me. I hope you've learned some things. I hope that I've been able to help you. My journey has been great. I hope your journey will be just as good. Thanks again, and so long for now. In closing, I just wanted to show you some footage, just a little bit here, now that my journey is complete. Here's the boat sitting in the basement where it's been for 6 months. Quite a change from all of the pieces that were in the box that I opened in January. The finish has turned out quite nicely. I'm very pleased with it. In places, the varnish is as much as 10 layers. In others, maybe 6. As I said earlier, varnish work is probably the part of doing the boat that I enjoy the most. I'm not quite sure why. I've always enjoyed varnish. But you can see that with a little patience, you can get a truly beautiful finish on the boat. And we have some nice contrast here between the different colors of the planking and the rails. So with a lot of work and some sandpaper and some paint and some patience, we've taken a box of parts and we've turned it into a really beautiful little boat. The journey has been very, very rewarding, and I hope that you have enjoyed going through the process with me. In another couple of weeks, the boat will hit the water and we'll have a little launching party. Once again, thanks for watching.